Good afternoon, my friends. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can be with you forever. I'm going to leave my email in the description so you can contact me with any inquiries you might have, and I'll charge you $40 per hour for any session that you may want to have, whether that's tarot reading, astrology chart reading, meditational practices, production lessons, what have you. So, today I'm going to be talking about a subject that is probably going to strike a nerve with some people, especially amongst people who are, spiritually inclined. And this is going to be about your vibrational frequency and what kind of vibrational frequency you should be emitting out there in the world. Right now, the general theme that people have been putting out there and putting out into the world is raising your vibrational frequency, right? Raising your vibrational frequency, putting out a high vibration, committing to that kind of lifestyle is noble in a sense because you are elevating yourself and you are tuning into the spiritual realms, tuning into the, pretty much becoming more uplifted in the sense of your mood and your happiness and your well-being and your energy and basically everything within that realm. You are benefiting to yourself, right? So this is generally a theme that's being propagated a lot in the spiritual community because people are stuck on a lower level frequency level and they're not seeing the bigger picture about things. They're not striving forward in their lives. They're not, attaining a sense of abundance and love and compassion and spiritual enlightenment. And they're stuck on a surface level and a very low level base where they're stuck into things like drugs and alcohol, sex, chasing after money, caught up in day-to-day jobs and the mundane aspects of life. So there's this tendency that we need to raise our vibrational frequency. And I'm here to say that there comes a point where you need to actually lower your vibrational frequency. And the importance of doing that is to remain grounded and to remain, a part of this world, a part of this earth, a part of day-to-day life, and not neglecting your material responsibilities that exist in the world. And that comes from, exercising. It comes through cleaning your apartment. It comes through, nourishing yourself with the proper foods and focusing on your finances, focusing on your material possession, your material security. What happens when you start raising your vibrational frequency is you start to get uprooted from the earth, from the physical world, and you start living in this weird astral realm. The problem with that is that's going to lead you into a path where you are susceptible to things like mental illness, psychosis, bipolar disease, schizophrenia. You're also susceptible to being invaded by third-party sources, whether you want to call them ghosts or demons or spirits. These are all things that are going to manifest once you start ascending. And, at some point you're going to be able to learn how to deal with those things because, the pathway to enlightenment and the pathway to attaining a higher level frequency and being able to live within that context of the world is going to be very difficult for a lot of people, or I should say everyone. There's no easy path to get into this. And part of the ability to deal with that lifestyle change is to make sure that you are well grounded, your foundation is well secured, and that you are grounded in the earth. And this comes from lowering your vibrational frequency. There's a lot of talk about the Kundalini aspects that have become very popular. A lot of yogic practices, a lot of pranic practices, and all of it is based around raising your energy, raising your energy, raising your energy. And there comes a point where that's all good and fine, but if you continue to live up here, you're going to find that first of all, your finances are going to be impacted as well. Your material world is going to be impacted. You are going to be outcasted from people on the physical plane of existence, right? This tends to happen with a lot of spiritual people. People start to think of them as weird and they don't want to hang out with them, which is perfectly fine. You don't need those kinds of people in your life anyway. The issue, though, is that once you ascend to that level, you sort of start becoming a lot more alone, and you're in your own little world, so to speak. You're in the imagination aspects of the world. You're in your mind. There is a lot that you are separating yourself from in terms of the physical plane of existence, which you always need to come back to. It's very important to have a good relationship with the physical, the lower vibrational frequencies, not to disregard them and think of them as, oh, they're low vibration, they're bad, just get rid of them, don't acknowledge them. No, they're there for a reason. They're there to be utilized as a strong foundation so that you can build yourself up once you attain a higher level frequency, so to speak. When you detach yourself from the lower frequencies, you are going to find that your physical health gets impacted. Your financial support gets impacted as well. It starts deteriorating in a sense. And I sort of started learning this, especially as I was making my Planets album, that, a lot of my material success, let's just call it, my material ability to attract things in the physical world was severely impacted because I was up there in space, so to speak, getting in a lot of information from the planets musically and composing that and getting in touch with that. And I was really frustrated in a lot of aspects because I wasn't manifesting anything in my physical world that I wanted to attain. And this was dealing primarily with money. This is dealing with relationships with people in general. I was getting a lot less people interested in me or listening to me, or people just I could engage with on a material level. This is when I realized, through the help of other people in my life that have given me guidance energetically and spiritually, that I needed to come back down to earth so that way the manifestation process could actually happen. This comes with a lot of prayer or visualization or manifestation. When you ascend to a higher level, you can sort of put out the things you want into the world, the things you want to achieve and receive and strive forward in your life. But then what people tend to forget about, or at least what I tended to forget about, and what you can do to sort of fix that issue, is bringing it back down to earth. How do you make this a physical reality? Now, you can utilize this through energetic practices, but a lot of people aren't familiar with that kind of thing. So this is going to come from your intentions. And if your intentions are too high up and too spiritual, too in line with God, which you should be, but if you're just stuck up there, then you're not going to be able to manifest and attract energy in the physical world, in the lower vibrational world. So this is very important to think about as you progress further in your spiritual and energetic practices, that it's very important that you receive and create a strong foundation in the lower vibrational frequencies. And this is going to come by lowering your frequency, which is going to trigger a lot of people. But take a look at some of the spiritual gurus and spiritual people that you might meet on a day-to-day basis. I'm not talking about the celebrities and the famous spiritual gurus, because they generally have a good solid foundation in the physical world, but they're not really cognizant and they're not really reflecting that into other people and evoking the importance of being well-grounded. So that's why you find a lot of people on the spiritual path struggling severely with their finances, struggling severely with their relationships, struggling severely with actually just being able to connect with random people in their lives. And this is an aspect of how you can become more down to earth, how you can be more practical, how you can be more in touch with other people's agendas and how they want to move forward in their lives as well. So if you want to help other people, for instance, if you're too elevated, you're not going to be able to create a bridge for those people to ascend themselves. You're just going to be up in your own little world where no one can actually receive your information, right? So this is very important to recognize, as you know, especially since we're all in quarantine right now, and we will be for a while. It's important that we start to utilize this time to become more well-grounded in the practicality and the reality of the world, because right now people are very elevated and not in a good way, right? Their vibrational frequency is not well-grounded, so it's all up here, it's all in their mind. This is where you're going to find a lot of people consumed by fear. They're consumed by, you know, whatever the media is pumping up. These are all generally higher vibrational frequencies, which you have to take into account, that when you experience mental delusions and mental illnesses, you know, those are higher vibrational frequencies than if you were dealing with, let's say, a sexual dysfunction or a physical injury even. That's probably the lowest frequency you could experience in life, is just a literal physical trauma to your body. Or you can exercise, which is a physical benefit, so to speak. Or you can, you know, start learning about finance, learning about how money works, how the financial system works. That's a low vibrational frequency, but it's a very powerful and important aspect of our current modern civilization, that money and currency is the driving force of how everything in the physical world is able to manifest itself. So, you know, if you want to attain those things, to make sure that you are financially secure and materially secure, make sure that you have a strong foundation or a strong connection to a lower vibrational frequency, and you have a solid relationship with that lower vibrational frequency. What tends to happen a lot is that people who are stuck on a lower vibrational frequency and they're achieving a negative impact on their lives is usually due to the fact that they have a negative or a tainted relationship with this lower vibrational frequency. So let's say you have a tainted relationship with money, for instance. You have this attitude towards money where you think you're above it, and you think that you do not need money for any success, because you've dealt with people in your life that were incredibly greedy, and you know, they were stuck on a lower vibrational frequency in the sense, and they didn't want to ascend and achieve a higher level of life, and they were stuck on that lower vibrational frequency and were incredibly greedy people, utilized money to manipulate other people. They crushed other people down, they brought other people down in order to gain a profit. So because of that relationship you've had with money and how you've experienced that, maybe that was from a family member, or maybe that was from a previous boss, from a place of employment that you had, you now sort of regard that level of frequency as a negative hindrance on your life. So that energy, that frequency in your life is now a weakness. It's a weak point in your life. So even though you are elevating yourself, because you do not have that solid foundation in that material realm, in that monetary realm, because everything in life has a certain vibrational frequency pitch, so to speak. So if you want to align that with the chakras, or in Chinese medicine is the dantians, or just the energy centers, which I'm not very familiar with the Indian aspects of it, so I don't like to use the chakra language, but people are used to that mainly. But I think there is a tendency that they are both different systems and they both represent different things, but I'll just utilize them for the sake of simplicity in this video. But if you think of money as a vibrational frequency, it's coming from the solar plexus. So if you want to attract money and financial resources and to attain a stronger relationship with that aspect of the world and the physical plane, you have to fix your relationship with the solar plexus. And part of it is the heart, like a little bit lower, I would say. I'm not an expert though. I'm still learning about these things, but generally when I am channeling into that kind of energy and that kind of frequency, that's pretty much where I'm feeling it, is in my stomach. That's very much dealing with the self, the material aspects of yourself, the self-expression of yourself. This is very much, it's not really so much of ego, but more of, I would say, soul, in the sense of self, right? This is your identity, your soul identity, right? It's situated above the kidneys and in the front, so there is a different relationship to that. It's difficult to explain because the English language is not really geared to define these things properly as much as other languages. So, when we talk about things like the ego, for instance, the ego can represent a lot of different things because it's very ill defined, right? So, when you talk about the self and the identity, it often gets lumped in with the ego, which I think is a completely different aspect to what an actual ego is, which is more of an outer shell that you utilize in order to gain material resources, right? It has nothing to do with your identity. So there's a lot of different aspects to that, and the ego is another lower vibrational frequency that you can utilize to attract certain things into your life, and that is used in tandem with the soul and the identity. And then on top of that, the eternal self, which is the source of all life and creation, which is the being of non-being, and all that weird esoteric stuff you would find in every religion. Basically, there's no real discrimination of the definitions of these things, but the language gets confused when interpreted, especially in the English language, which is fractured in a way to not really define these things properly. But to continue on the subject of the lower vibrational frequency, what I found was when I started doing my energetic practices, I was continually trying to manifest more money into my life. And I was doing it from a higher vibrational frequency, and I found that it wasn't working whatsoever. It wasn't doing anything at all. And I kept utilizing my mind and the higher vibrational frequencies to attract physical things into my life. And the reason why it didn't work was because those material things don't exist in the astral realm. They don't exist in the higher dimensions. They don't exist on the higher frequencies. They exist on the lower frequencies. So if you want to attract things and achieve things on the material realm, don't forget you also have to actually create streams and create and build certain aspects in life and certain career paths in life so that you can actually receive these things. You can't just get them out of nowhere. You actually have to build a physical construction to receive things. So that's a completely different aspect altogether. But I also realized that once I started lowering my frequency and focusing on the solar plexus and the dantian, the lower dantian, I started attracting more money. I started attracting more relationships in my life. And it was like overnight. As soon as I lowered my frequency and lowered my energy to a lower frequency, to the more material realm, that was when physical things started coming into my life. I even did this last night because I was having a little bit of a dry area where I wasn't getting as many people, buying my albums, getting as much money. Then I just did a little bit of a meditation of putting out an energy from my solar plexus. And then this morning I got a bit more money just overnight. And, not just like one album purchase, for instance. I got like 3 people in the span of like a couple hours. So this stuff is real. You just have to utilize it properly and make sure that you are precise. And this comes through study and, work, basically. You have to actually put in that work and that, you have to put in the work, basically. That's all it is at the end of the day. And that's how you're going to attract the lower frequency aspects of the world, the physical things in the world, the material things, which is important if you want to ascend to a higher level. Because, if you don't have a healthy body, if you don't have a healthy financial support system, if you are homeless and, starving to death and you're in the middle of the desert, chances are you're probably not going to be able to ascend as high as possible, right? If you neglect the physical aspects of the world and sort of think yourself as being above it, your spiritual progress and your spiritual attainment is going to be fractured, and you're going to become drained essentially, and you're not going to achieve the things that you actually want. Take a look at philosophers who had that same viewpoint and that same philosophy, that they believed that the material world wasn't important. And you'll notice that most of them died poor, miserable, and alone, or they suffered severe mental illnesses because they weren't grounded, and they weren't grounded in reality in the physical world, and they weren't able to recycle the energy back down, right? So keep that in mind if you're trying to practice a system where you are elevating, you're constantly elevating and raising your frequency. Be careful about becoming drained and diluted, and basically suffer mental illness or financial constraint or physical ailments, because that's going to happen if you do not bring the energy back down to a physical realm where you can manifest the proper things in your life and have a solid relationship with the physical world, which is very important. There's a reason why we're all here on Earth. If we weren't, if all of this physical world stuff was complete bullshit, then we wouldn't even be here in the first place. So you're here, accept that reality, utilize it to your benefit, and then you will find that you were able to ascend properly in a way that's with a solid foundation. Take a look at a pyramid, for instance. A pyramid has that solid, strong foundation, and it crescendos to the top to a point, which is the highest frequency you can attain. But you need that solid foundation. If you were to look at a pyramid and they just cut out the middle, right, and you just had like this pyramid that went like this, and then like there was like a little stick in the middle, and then it went back up here in a stronger frequency, you'd realize that that kind of structure would actually fall over and break and collapse in and on itself, which is what happens to a lot of spiritual people who do not master the physical aspects of the world, and they do not, make sure that they have a strong relationship with the fundamentals and the foundations of the world. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit me up on my email if you need anything. And I will see you next time. Peace.